Welcome to my course, Game Development Basics, Week 4, Lesson 10, Haunted House Wrap-Up. Over the last 2 weeks of this course, we've learned a lot. In Week 3, we learned about importing assets, we learned about the landscaping tools, some level design, sound, and lighting. In Week 4, we spent time learning about blueprint interfaces, event dispatchers, timelines, triggers, and many other things. So there was a lot packed into this lesson. And if you've made it this far in the course, I hope you're really starting to feel a lot more comfortable in Unreal Engine, and maybe even taking some of these challenges as a time to practice your skills. In this lesson, as far as our game is concerned though, there are a couple things that I want to do just to wrap up this project though. The first thing is I want to go back into my game mode and set our gameplay timer back to 10 minutes. And this is really going to be up to you to test this to figure out if this gives the player enough time, if there's too much time, too little time. That way we create a sense of challenge without making the player frustrated that they couldn't complete the map within the allotted time. Based upon the way that you designed your level, 10 minutes may be too much time, it may not be enough time. So make sure that you're testing this and maybe even have a few friends test it out just to make sure that there's enough time. Another thing is, when the player wins the game or gets to the gate, there's really not anything to let them know that they've won. They basically escape and they're allowed to just freely roam around the level. We don't really want this for our game, so I'm going to create another custom event in my game mode, and I'm going to call this Escape. You can call it whatever you want though. And similar to how we set in Game Over, I'm going to copy all of this. And that way the player can no longer move around. I'm going to create another widget, and this is going to be a widget telling the player that they completed the level. Let's go back to our UI folder and just set this widget up really quickly. And now I just need to add that escape widget here. So when the player escapes, we'll stop all the movement, same as in Game Over. We'll add the escape widget, and then we'll allow the player to click on the menu. And one more thing I want to do is that when the player does escape, I want the sun to rise slowly over here. That way they could see that it's morning and they've successfully escaped the level. So to do this, let's grab our directional light and let's adjust the angle until we get a nice sunrise. And here it looks like the rotation on our directional light is 0, 190, and 180. So in our level blueprint, I'm going to create a new custom event called Sunrise. And similar to here in Set Night, I'm going to put those values in. And then here, when we open the gates, we want to call this event. And then we also want to call our escape event in our game mode. So now when we interact with the gate, we'll open the gates, call sunrise, and then call the escape on our game mode. But I think it'll be a little bit jarring for the player to just suddenly see the sun rise at this level. So I actually want to add a timeline. And let's find the value just before the sun is about to rise. It looks like 175 should work. So let's test this out. And it looks like it's working. The last thing we probably want to do is stop our timer and maybe hide the UI altogether. So now our game loop is working. The player can complete all the puzzles and finish the game, or they can also have the lose condition of running out of time. At this time, you can take some more time to put some polish onto your game, and that may include adding some extra sound effects or putting a little bit more work into your level design, maybe adding some additional assets to the houses to make them look a little bit more like a real house and not just an empty house. One thing I'm going to do really quickly is this is supposed to be, kind of a survival horror game, and all of my fonts look a little bit out of place. So I'm going to find a creepy looking font and add it to my game and replace all of the existing fonts with that. And there are a lot of websites out there where you can find free fonts. For instance, this one is called dafont.com, and you can just search for creepy font or horror font and find anyone that you like. I found this one called Nightside that I really like, so I'm going to use this one in my game, but you don't have to use this one. You can use any one that you want. With all of these fonts though, one thing to be aware of is that there may be licensing, so this one says free for personal use. So I'm able to use this for my game because I have no intent to publish it. But if you do want to make this a complete game and publish it, make sure that you're finding one that has a free to use license for commercial use, or in some cases, you can even buy a license for a font, which allows you to use it anytime you want for any purpose. So I'm going to download this font, and this one downloads as a zip file. There's a text in here that just makes sure you know it's for personal use only. I'm going to drag this and put it on my desktop. And then here in my UI folder, I'm going to import an asset. And when you import the font, you may get a little warning, just say yes. And now we have our font in there. So now we're able to go into each of our menus and update the text with this font. I'll start with the main menu. And if we click on our text, over here in the font, we can select the drop down and then find our new font. So I'll just do this for all of them. And here in my font, you'll notice that the letters are a little bit too high. That's higher than I would like them. One way we can fix this is with this transform translation. We can just add a little bit to the Y until we get them back into the box. And for my game, I actually don't even want the button to show on this menu. And so on the button itself, I can go into the background color and set the opacity to 0. And now the button won't show, but it's still clickable by the player. So now I'm just going to update the rest of my menus. So at this point, I think we can call this game complete. So I hope you learned a lot in the last 2 weeks, and I will see you in the next lesson.